Hey folks, David Stewart here. The coming creative boom. Before I get to that, don't forget, you can buy the Keys to Prolific Creativity. You can buy it right now. That splash screen is actually out of date. It's whopping $2.99 on Kindle, $8 for the paperback. Buy it, take your creative output to the next level, and be part of this coming creative boom. Why do I think there's going to be a coming creative boom when there's all this uncertainty? Is it just that we're going to stay home and make a bunch of art right now? Well, I hope you will, and I hope we all do, and we can up our creative output over the next couple of weeks to give some entertainment to people, but there's more to it than that. So one of the things that I've been hearing about is some big losses in Hollywood. $20 billion is the number that I've seen floating around, and I think I'll link an article down below that says about that. What happened? Well, because of this virus crisis, they halted production on a bunch of movies. That's going to cost them money because starting production back up, you're going to lose money doing that. And of course, you don't have any movies playing in theaters, so you're losing all of that box office revenue, which is very, very important for making a movie's money back, because there's just a lot less money in the video market these days than compared to how there used to be. So that's a big one. Now, if they're losing money, why would there be a creative boom? It's because the creative boom is going to happen outside of Hollywood. There's a big opportunity for that system to at least be diminished in terms of its importance. Really, the Hollywood system represents the last vestige of what I call the corporate period in art. That is this period of art where corporations, large companies, are producing almost all of the popular art that people consume, rather than having it be produced by individuals and small groups, as was the case, say, prior to the 20th century. But you really have to have a corporation in order to make a big blockbuster movie. It costs millions of dollars, sometimes hundreds of millions of dollars, to assemble all the talent that's required, to pay for all the talent, to coordinate hundreds, sometimes thousands of people in order to make the movie, have all the effects happen, to have the physical locations to do it in. All of that kind of funding is very, very expensive. You can only really fund it with a large infrastructure like a company that can pull revenue and pool resources to a really, really large degree. So movies, especially big blockbuster movies, those are, to me, the last vestige of this corporate period of art. And if there's a big hiccup on those, that means there's a big opportunity for other things, more independent films, and other entertainment media as well, other kinds of independent TV, it's maybe produced on YouTube, and books and things like that, which is my area of expertise in my area of economic activity, I suppose. It's a big opportunity because people can look for other things. If there's not a big blockbuster out, they're going to be looking at other kinds of entertainment. You also see an uptick in consumption of entertainment whenever there's an economic downturn, and this will have a negative economic impact for sure. I don't know if it'll precipitate like some kind of large recession or depression or something like that. That really depends on how government really handles the crisis after the fact. But we can see in a lot of economic downturns, we do have people increasing their consumption of entertainment. Now, contrary to some narratives that people consume entertainment because they need to be distracted from like the misery of economic downturns, I think it's just it's a value thing. You know, instead of going to the bar and spending $50 on drinks, you go to the cinema and spend $10. You know, it's comparatively cheaper to get entertainment. Or you stay home and play video games. You stay home and watch TV instead of going out to do different things. So consumption habits can change as a result of that. And that means there's more opportunity to have entertainment put out for people to consume. The other thing is that when there's uncertainty in a large company, it's a big problem for them, whereas it's not a problem for independent creators like myself. So a lot of companies end up in this cycle where they are constantly acquiring debt based on assets that they have. So they acquire debt, they buy new assets, they acquire more debt on those assets, and you have to have a constant stream of revenue just to service the debt that you have. You're not putting money in a bank for a rainy day. You're really spending all your money servicing debt. And that means an interruption to your revenue stream can destroy your business. Even a mild one for a couple of months can take you from being totally in the black and making money to being in the red on the verge of bankruptcy, if not bankrupt. I saw this big time in the last recession as Obama took office, and the first 4 years of Obama's Obama's administration, we had a major economic downturn, and I saw a lot of businesses go out of business that were very, very successful beforehand. But all it took was a minor interruption in their revenues and their revenue streams before they basically were bankrupt. So like I remember this restaurant I used to play at, many years ago, they were really successful. And at some point I realized that they had closed, and I found out what had happened is that they had expanded. The economy turned downward, and not only was it that they had less people coming, they didn't have the growth that they needed in order to pay the debt on the business. So even though they were still generating revenue was not enough to cover the costs, and within about 3 months they're bankrupt. And that's the way it went. So you can have this happen with these big companies. This is why one little blip, and all of a sudden, all these companies need all these bailouts, because what they do is they gamble with debt. They take out debt on their assets and invest it in different things. And then as soon as the revenue dries up, even for a moment, you are in big trouble. Unfortunately, that's kind of the way our society is now with individuals too. We've basically set up individuals. This is totally an aside. We've basically set up individuals to take out a bunch of debt based on a monthly income stream. So, you have a mortgage based on how much money you make, and they decide that ahead of time, like how big of a loan shall we give you based on your income. You have a car payment. You have student debt obligations. So you have all these debt obligations. You have to be making a certain amount of money to pay down the debt obligations. What happens when you don't? What happens when you get laid off and your revenue doesn't exist for 3 months? It's like you lose everything. You could lose your house, your car. You could lose everything you've worked for and come away with nothing. That's a problem. And if you're in that boat, my prayers are for you. My heart goes out to you, and I want to just express how bad it is to be in that situation. It's kind of what the situation we've trained people to be in, but it's really not that different for corporate America. The thing is, for independents like myself, that's normal. The uncertainty is normal. So we don't know if we're putting out a book, if I'm working hard to put out a book, I don't know how well it's going to be perceived. I don't know how well it's going to be received, that is. I don't know how well it's going to sell. I just don't know. It's an uncertain return on the investment of time of making it. And so just independent creators like me, we adopt business styles that take that uncertainty into account. You operate with low cost so that you are never in a situation where an interrupt on your, getting used to a certain amount of revenue coming in, you don't lose everything if you have an interruption on that revenue. You set your life up so that you don't need that constant revenue, or you just set your life up so that that high degree of uncertainty is part of your business strategy. I really don't know how much money I'm going to make on this new Keys to Prolific Creativity book. I hope to make some money on it, but if I don't make a ton of money on it, it's okay, because I have all of these other things which have a lot of uncertainty as well. All these other books that I write that maybe will make me money here, maybe they won't. You just never really know what's going to take off. Sometimes I write something and it really explodes. Anyway, that's our normal. Our normal is dealing with that amount of uncertainty. And the normal for the Hollywood company is really not. So we're at a big advantage when things are uncertain, because we're used to it. We know that it might fail. There's really no change in the downside for an independent creator. You have the same amount of possibility of failure, but if the possible market for those who are looking for independent art grows, the potential upside is better. So for those of us who are in this creative industry, the upside is now bigger. There's a bigger potential upside, but the downside hasn't really gotten any worse. Maybe people in general might spend a little bit less on books, but not that much, and you never really know if yours is going to be successful anyway. So there's not a lot of increase to the downside, but there's a big increase to the possible upside. So we are in a very good place. Compare this to Hollywood. One of the reasons that Hollywood is constantly so obsessed with sequels and requels and all this kind of stuff is just, it's a risk thing. That they're spending $200 million to make a movie and they need to make their money back. So they choose something that is really easy to make their money back. They don't have to have a lot of talent to make remakes, because you're just remaking something somebody else did that was talented. You can kind of bank on the nostalgia bucks to do it. And so it creates a little revenue stream. It's a way to keep their revenue constant so they can keep this debt to asset cycle just humming along. They can keep expanding and eating stuff up. So that's how it is. And the other thing too is I think people are going to realize just how creatively bankrupt Hollywood is and has been for a while now. Writers can't write. The directors are often incompetent at doing what they're doing, or they're related to somebody. They're a nepotistic hire. They're somebody's nephew, and the producers can't manage their checkbooks. They can't manage a budget. They can't figure out how to make money on these movies. There's a lot of incompetency at Hollywood, and that's actually one of the biggest advantages for those of us who are outside the system. These are things that you can mitigate a little bit if you're just making constant remakes. You don't really need to risk a lot of money. You don't really need a lot of talent to make it work. You just kind of throw it into your big grinder machine, and out pops a really shiny, well-made, high-effect movie that you can throw into the theaters and make your money back and get your revenues for quarter two. When that goes away, big opportunity for the rest of us. We're used to competition. We're used to operating on low budgets. We're used to delivering things on time and under budget. And most importantly, independents, we are used to having to produce high-quality art that people are really interested in for its own sake, because we can't make a Brand X movie. We can't make a Star Wars movie. It's not an option for us. We have to create original things that people like, and that's a big advantage as well. So I want you to be part of that creative boom. I'm going to try to be part of that creative boom. Please check out my book, Keys to Prolific Creativity. Has a lot of stuff in there for designing a creative process to help you up your output. Those of us who are used to working alone in small groups, we're not impacted by a quarantine that wipes out movie production of hundreds of people. It doesn't change anything for us. So we're at an advantage here. And I want you to think along those terms. So thanks so much, and I'll see you guys next time.